WICR.
From the basement of La Penta, this is your host, The Rock is on this Monday, April 24th, 2017. We have a lot to get to today. We got some baseball. Mets are in a funk right now. Seems they can't get out of their own way. Bullpen's a major issue for them, whereas the Yankees, they're on a tear. Granted, they lost 2 of 3 from the Pirates, but still, Aaron Judge is killing it, and we got NBA playoffs. Some Cavaliers clinched yesterday. Warriors have a chance to clinch tonight. But first, we have to talk baseball with the locals, and we'll start with the Mets. And like I said, their bullpen is just flat out awful. And it's just this team. It's like it's so inept. It's so inept when it comes to hitting. And it's like you're dealing with Cespedes, who has a hamstring injury, and who could possibly land on the DL. Be taken out of the lineup. Now we remember back in 2015 when the Mets, they had difficulty struggling. They had a difficult time and were struggling trying to score runs. They averaged about 3-4 runs a game. If they scored 5 runs, that was a miracle for them. Of course, they made the trade for Cespedes, and then that kind of skyrocketed them. They were a juggernaut offense. He was very potent, made them a dangerous team, and of course, he led them to the playoffs. And then Murphy, with his postseason performance, led them to the World Series, in which unfortunately they lost to the Royals in 5. But you have to admit, when you take Cespedes out of this lineup for the Mets, it's a big difference. He's a difference maker for the Mets. It's like if he's not hitting, nobody else is going to hit. Now, granted, Jay Bruce has been killing it lately. He's been doing a phenomenal job for them, power-wise, and he's kind of like slowly redeemed himself because he struggled last year when the Mets traded him from the Reds. But but it's like if you take Cespedes out, or if he's struggling, the whole lineup struggles. It's like he is that difference maker. Cespedes is the difference maker for the Mets. And then, of course, and it seems like now, and it's like all of a sudden all the injuries are piling up. You already had David Wright, whose career is probably going to come to an end soon. You have Cespedes with the hamstring, and now Duda's on the DL. So you may have to move one of your outfielders to the first base position. Now, could it be Cespedes if he doesn't land on the DL? Possibly. Or it could be Jay Bruce. Now, granted, he's never had any experience playing first base, but, the Mets they're limited as of now. Their options are limited. And then, of course, you have Reyes, you have Granderson, who can't hit the side of a barn, couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat, and they're struggling. And it seems like their struggles still continue as April comes to a close. And it seems like the only bright spots for the Mets so far this year, it's just been Michael Conforto, who's been killing it lately and is doing a phenomenal job, and then the power surge of Jay Bruce. That's pretty much it. Granted, I don't want to over exaggerate with the pitching staff because it's only April though, and they still have a long ways to go though. But they don't look as sharp as lately. DeGrom is having some issues. Thor isn't as dominant. He's kind of a little inconsistent, but I think the main problem with the Mets is just, their bullpen. It has to be their bullpen. Now, they get Jeurys Familia coming back from a 15-game suspension with his domestic violence. Major League Baseball didn't really have the full details of what went on, but they still suspended him. Personally, I thought he was going to get a month like Chapman did last year, but he only got 15 games, so it was half of that. But he's already back, and he already blew... he already struggled his first outing against the Nationals. And it's like... And the thing is with the Mets, and it seems like this has been the problem for the Mets for as long as I can remember. They've always have bullpen issues. Or always have issues with the bullpen. Whether it's they can't find a good closer, couldn't find a good reliever, or they get a good closer, he doesn't perform, he underachieves. The whole 9 yards. The Mets have always had problems with the relief pitching and their relief pitching and their bullpen. Because I remember in 2000, when they had those collapses in 2007, 2008, their one factor that led to that was their bullpen. They had games late, they had leads late in games on, then they would blow it and wind up losing. And I remember in 2008, that was a hectic year that year because the Mets, that was the final season at Shea Stadium. They were coming off, the first collapse though, and they were looking to avenge that. Willie Randolph got fired middle of the year. Jerry Manuel took over. And it was just a lot of chaos. Just a lot of chaos and all. But, and I remember in that stat, it was something like the Mets lost a lead, or there were 7 games. I think it was around 7 to 8 games in which the Mets lost when they had a lead entering the 8th or 9th inning. So they were winning. The Mets had a game. They were winning. They had a lead in the 8th inning, late in the game, and they wind up losing They wind up losing 7 to 8 times. And what also is frustrating is that their starting pitching. I remember with Yohan Santana, he would have a good game. Yohan Santana would have a good game. He would pitch his ass off and do phenomenal. And then it's like the Mets would lose the game. Would blow the lead for him. Blow the lead and either lose the game or win it in extras. And he wouldn't get the win. He would get the no decision, which he rightfully deserved to get a win. Or it's like if these guys, they only pitch 2-3 they pitch nearly a complete game, like 8-9 innings, and then they give up like 2-3 runs and they still lose because the offense can't get any runs going. So it's either the bullpen or the offense is anemic. But as of now, it's just the bullpen. And I'm telling you, if the Mets want to have a pulse, or if they want to make things interesting, they got to revamp that bullpen, and they got to really pick it up. They really got to pick it up. Because, the Mets have lofty expectations this year, and they have World Series aspirations. And after watching what happened or what unfolded at Citi Field this past week against the Nationals, as a fan, you got to worry. You got to worry. Also, you got to believe that they can get it done, but you know what? Still, you got to worry. You hope. You just hope that this doesn't become a continual problem in the coming months of the season. Because as they say, though, it sounds cliche, but it's kind of true if you think about it. You can't win pennants in April, but you can certainly lose them. And the Mets, if they continue digging themselves in a deeper hole, they're going to be, seem like a fish out of water, and they have to climb all the way back just to get to 500. Now, granted, they're only 8-11. They're only 3 games back, or they're only 3 games below 500. But they lost 4 straight. They lost 3 or 4 to the Marlins. Lost 2 or 3 to the Phillies, who were just flat out awful. And then, of course, this past weekend getting swept by the Nationals. They got to turn it around. They got to turn it around. And then also, it's like when you watch the Met games, or when you watch these Met games on TV, and it's like the boneheaded decisions Terry makes. You scratch your head. Now, granted, Terry has a history of doing this. As a Met fan, you would realize that, or you would notice that. But it's like, I'll give you an example. Last week when I went to the Met game, they were playing the Phillies. It was the Tuesday night. It was the first of 3. Honestly, and the game was 2-1. The Mets were winning 2-1 throughout the game. And honestly, I have never, ever seen a manager use so many relief pitchers in a 2-1 game. Now, granted, Zach Wheeler was pitching that night. He threw close to 100 pitches through 5 innings. So you know what? He's coming off Tommy John surgery. So of course you have to put your bullpen. You have to make your bullpen work early. But honestly, like I've never seen so many relief pitchers used in a 2-1 game. Because when you think a 2-1 game, you think hey, it's a starting pitch. It's a starting pitching matchup, or it's a complete duel between 2 starting pitchers. But now it's like a relief. But it's actually a competitive battle between the relievers or the bullpen or people in the bullpen. And then of course, Mets had a lead heading into the 8th inning. Phillies tied it. Phillies got the lead in extras. Wound up losing. Because I have to tell you folks, bullpen or relief pitching is very, very underrated. It's very underrated. because your starting pitchers can give you so much. They can only throw complete games depending on how their body feels or if they're good. Because but obviously they're not going to be able to throw a complete game. This isn't the 1930s or 40s where pitchers would pitch, back-to-back or double headers and have no problem. Bullpen's got to come through. It's got to come through. And as of now, the Mets don't have it. And they need to think of a way to get stronger, get that bullpen in order, so they can make a serious postseason run. And that concludes this first segment.